Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be explaining the components of a GUI, and we're going to start by pointing out the fact that we import so many, in fact all of the JFrame components from these libraries, specifically the new one javax.swing, or the newer one in comparison. And we know that all of our JFrame components are from it because they all have a J in front of it, and all the swing components have J's in front of them to distinguish them. So with that being said, I want to turn our attention to the fact that we are creating a GUI component, and we have this as our class, and then in order to do so, we also have an inner class where we are going to make different panels in the GUI, and even in some panels, we're going to have a grid system within another grid system to create some of these components. So what does the GUI look like, and why do we even have it? Well, it looks like this, and the reason we have that is because a user can interact with it and input some data about themselves, and then we can record it. And this is just a really easy way to do that. So I want to turn your attention to the fact that we have 2 rows of different features in 3 columns, and then a close button. We're not including this in the others. So we can see this is the top row and this is the bottom row. So you can divide it into 6 different panels. And what's interesting is if you look in the code, we see that we are totally going to be doing that because we have right here, let's see, when we are still in the GUI components class, we are creating one large grid, and you see that the parameters here are 2 and 3, and that's going to basically mean our x and y coordinates for this grid, so it's going to be 2 rows and 3 columns, so that actually makes a lot of sense. And we're going to make panels until we have completed making 6, until the index reaches 5 specifically, because the index is going to start at 0. So these 2 numbers multiplied will always equal the number of panels that we're going to make. So I'm not going to go through every line, but we set up our grid layout and our 6 panels here outside of our private void make panels, so that when we get to our inner class of private void make panels, we are working within each individual panel. And as I just showed you, there's 6 different panels. Each panel has its own chunk of code where we are creating the type of component we're importing. There's so many different ones. There's you can have a list over here. You can have a drop-down menu right here. You can have a slider right here. So the first thing we do is create that that component from JFrame, and then we situate it in a panel by specifying that it's index number 2. So in this case, that means 0, 1, 2. It's going to be third, so we're going to have it all the way on the right. And the checkbox you can see is right here, and that does correspond to the fact that panel number 2 is a checkbox. So one other thing that I want to point out is that we can have grids even within grids. So for panel number 4, you can see we're thinking, where is this going to be? There's 6 panels, but the last one is 5, which means we're going to be in the middle on the bottom row for panel number 4. And you can see that this looks like a few different buttons you can click, which are radio buttons, and then we check and we see yes. These are definitely radio buttons. We're making a grid layout within our larger grid layout of 3. So 3 times 1 is 3. There's 3 buttons. We know 3 means rows, 1 means columns, so this totally makes sense. And then we just have all these components within our radio button grid, and then within the larger grid. You'll notice one cool thing to notice is our close button is not in any of those 6, and that makes sense because it's not even in our inner class of public void make panels. It's right here. So it's outside of that little grid. And that's kind of the components of GUI, so I hope that was helpful.